Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samastajana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahmavidvaram Satgurum Brahmavidvaram. The last text we had seen in this session was Kenopanishad. Very direct teaching, taking us directly to Drigdrishya Viveka. That was the beauty of Kenopanishad. Getting up from this Sanghata, assemblage of body, mind, intellect, Upanishad mantra said that itself is moksha. The text we are going to study now is Saddarshanam. Puja Guruji has written one statement in the beginning of the text. That is the essence of Saddarshanam. Seeing the truth is being the truth. Darshanam means to see. See what? It says see Sat. Sat, Darshanam. But the beauty is, I will not be seeing Sat like another object. The mantra in Kenopanishad, Naham manye suvedeti, no na vedeti vedacha. I don't say that I know it very well, nor do I say I don't know it. Means I don't know it very well as an object. Na tatra chakshur gacchati, nava gacchati, no manaha. Eyes cannot see it, speech cannot illuminate, mind cannot illuminate. That truth I have to see. So what is the way to do Saddarshanam? Way to do Saddarshanam is to know my nature as Sat. If I know my nature as anything else, no matter how good it is, what will that thing be called as? Mithya Darshanam. Mithya Darshanam means erroneous knowledge, erroneous perception. Now, a little bit background about Saddarshanam. It is said one of the quality of a student of Vedanta is to observe. Student of Vedanta should have this ability to observe things, not only observe, but also learn the right lessons. So when the student observes creation, he finds one distinct characteristic in this creation, and that is of constant change. Creation is something, Bhagwan Shankaracharya writes, Nitya Prachalita Swabhavaha. Prachalita means always it is moving, constantly changing. That is the nature of this creation. You see outside, so many things are there. Nature, constantly changing. Tree is there, was a seed, became a plant, became a big tree, again perishes. There is a saying, you cannot step into the same river twice. Once you have stepped, by the time you go back, some other thing has come. Whenever you visit your hometown, where you grew up, invariably the statement will make it, so much has changed. The school I went to, the streets that were there, home that was there, everything is different. Now, what are we discussing? When we talk about creation, one blaring facet of creation is constant change. Both the examples are part of creation, right? Plant was part of creation, weather is part of creation, hometown is part of creation. Now come to this body. Body is also part of creation, and it is also undergoing change. What we were 20 years before, what we are now, what we will be few years later is going to be very different. Third example was physical body. First one was just nature. Second was hometown. Third is physical body. Fourth one is the situation around us, which includes the people, which includes objects, and just wherever we are placed in life. How would you categorize that? Unchanging or changing? Constantly changing. Because it is part of creation, there is not even a single object in this creation which is unchanging. But do you feel any difference between the first two examples and example number 3 and 4? First two examples were plant and hometown, that undergoing change versus body undergoing change and situation around me undergoing change. Do we feel there is a difference? One difference is whenever it comes to body, that constant change also brings uncertainty. And that uncertainty slowly transforms into fear. Plant also undergoes change, but we are not uncertain about what is going to happen there. Nor is fear there about plant undergoing change, hometown undergoing change. But there is uncertainty and there is some fear also about physical body undergoing change and the situation around us undergoing some change. Although all 4 examples are part of creation only. It is not that example 1 and 2 was part of creation, 3 and 4 is not part of creation. Body is also part of creation, and the immediate surrounding is also creation. Now, this is the ability of a student of Vedanta to observe. The one who observes in this way seeks an answer. He says, why is that so many things in this world change and I'm not bothered by it? But when it comes to change in this body, change in the immediate surrounding, I get so affected by it. That is when text like Saddarshanam comes and says, there is some entity called as ahamkara, which has come, and in this whole creation, it has created I notion in few things of that creation. Whichever I have erroneously owned up as I, if that thing changes, there I see a sense of uncertainty, and that uncertainty slowly transforms into fear. It is not that this sadhaka has not heard Vedanta. Several texts he has studied, with Upanishads, Bhashya, everything he has studied. But if we closely ask ourselves, closely see within, we will find 2 types of thoughts competing with each other. One thought is of fear. I'm just giving fear as an example. It could be any other emotion. One thought is, I am afraid, having some fear. Another thought is, I am consciousness. Because Vedanta has hammered this thing that you are Chaitanya, you are Ananda Swarupa, you are Brahma. So one thought is of fear, of change, whatever that thing is. And second thought is, I am that eternal truth. So texts like Saddarshanam will help us analyze this problem by identifying nature of ahankara, by helping us understand how fear is linked to ahankara, not to Atma. Texts like Saddarshanam will help us to distinguish these two things. Means after studying Vedanta for several years, we might still feel the emotions that I see in myself are the same as before. And Raman Maharshi will tell us that all those emotions belong to ahankara. Remove that ahankara from aham, what remains is that blissful self. So this ahankara word, we have to reflect a little bit more now. What did we see so far? Just the ability of the student to observe. Constant change in the creation. But few things in this creation bother me more, like my physical body and the immediate surrounding. And the reason for this is erroneous identification with some conditioning. Otherwise, Vedanta has told me you are infinite. How can infinite consciousness have fear? That's why we discuss that two thoughts in the same person. On one side, I feel I am consciousness also. Another side, I feel I am feeling fear. I am afraid of something. Just two things cannot coexist in the same place. There should be something more to reflect about. So that is where this term ahankara is introduced. That is Raman Maharshiji's forte, if you want to call it. The way he approaches Vedanta is through this ahankara. But before we go further, we have to just reflect on the word ahankara. One Mahatma Ji in Hindi he would say, बाकी सारी शत्रुओं को मारना है बेकार, मारना हो तो मारो अहंकार. Killing all the other enemies is very futile. It is of no use. If you really want to kill, finish this ahankara. Before we see the technical definition of ahankara, we should see very practical definition first. Because sometimes ahankara also, we might end up discussing in such a way, we feel it's some other person. Somebody else has ahankara, I don't have ahankara. Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji in Viveka Chudamani, he says, ahankara is recognized through two main roles that it plays. Whenever it identifies with organs of action, that ahankara gets a title of karta. Ahankara loves to own up. Whatever any organ of action does, ahankara says, I did it. Hand is writing, ahankara doesn't say, hand is writing. Ahankara says, I am writing. And whenever it identifies with organ of action, karmendriya, it becomes karta. Now, there is nothing wrong in identifying with karmendriya. What happens is, it is seeking joy. It is seeking happiness through that karma. Greater the karma, greater it feels, I become happier. We'll come back to this point, but let us just first appreciate how to recognize this ahankara. The first expression of ahankara is doership. Whenever somebody asks this question, who did this? The answer to that question is ahankara. Who did this? He said, I did it. Nice painting is there. I might have worked hard to do the painting. But if somebody asks who did it, he says, I did it. That is ahankara. Now the second facet of that is bhoktrutva. Bhoktrutva means being an experiencer. Sometimes we say enjoyer, but we can enjoy only good things. But experience is good and bad both. So the one who feels I am experiencing something, that entity is called as ahankara. See, ahankara, colloquially we say pride. ये बहुत अहंकारी है. In this person has lot of pride. In Vedanta, ahankara doesn't mean only pride. We will see later a little bit more about sattvic ahankara also. But over here, we should just recognize first expression of ahankara is doership. Second expression is experiencerhood. Experiencerhood. Whenever somebody asks a question, how was it? The answer to that question is ahankara. You went to the concert last night. How was it? It was very good. The one who feels I've experienced, that experiencer is ahankara. Now, if karta, doer, was the one who identified with organs of action, who will be bhokta? Identified with organs of perception. Ears heard music. But if somebody asks, how was the music? I say, I enjoyed it. I heard the music. Whenever I goes with organ of perception, that I is called as bhokta. Okay, very simple. How this ahankara operates. Really speaking, our life is like a laboratory, you know. Vedanta, all experiments you can do here. See throughout the day how we are switching between both these things, either identifying with organ of action, calling ourselves karta, or bhokta. Now again, this is very natural. For transaction, we need karta and bhokta. Right? So many things they ask. Immigration form. Your height, your weight, where you are from. Now all those are transactional identities. As long as we keep it to transactional identity, nothing wrong. The problem comes when we develop too many preferences in kartrutva and in bhoktrutva. Bhagwan Shankaracharya says, Vishayanam anukulye sukhi, viparyaye dukhi. He says, ahankara is somebody who feels very happy when things are happening as I want. Anukula means it is on my side. Pratikula means opposite side. If a river is flowing, I am standing on one bank. So my bank is called as Anukula. Other side is Pratikula. Like that, this ahankara becomes sukhi, Vishayanam anukulye. When everybody is doing just that thing which I want, everything is life is happening the way I want, this ahankara feels very nice. If something goes wrong, Vishayanam anukulye sukhi, viparyaye dukhi. If nothing has gone wrong outside, huh? What has gone wrong is, it is going against how I want it to go. This is that ahankara becomes dukhi. And Bhagavan says, this itself is samsara. Sukha and dukkha going up and down like this because of something else in the world outside. He says that is samsara. That is exactly what Saddarshanam is here to break for us. Now you apply this definition to kartrutva. What was kartrutva? Identifying with organ of action and then feeling I am the doer. Now there, wherever things are happening the way I want, Vishayanam anukulya is happening. That time this kartrutva gives joy. Doership gives joy. When it doesn't happen, what is the statement? Tatkim karmani ghore mam. Why are you pushing me in this ghora karma? Niyojayasi Keshava. All of that is play of the same ahankara. Just before you were so happy. So I was happy because everything was happening because the way I want. Vishayanam anukulye sukhi. The moment things change, that time this ahankara becomes dukhi. Now we will say, why can't I live my life always doing things, always adjusting things the way I want outside? If that is our thought, we have not understood Karma Siddhanta. Karma Siddhanta says, if we have a human body, we will invariably end up with experiences on both sides. Things which are anukula, things which are pratikula. Means things which are favorable and things which are unfavorable. So much so that nothing we can do to stop it. It will come, enter our mind. One of our Swamiji would say Hari Om. All this sorrow will come inside, knock on our mind, say Hari Om, then give its fair share and go away. You see, you cannot help it. The only way is work on this ahankara and get this clarity, I am not ahankara. Now apply that to bhoktrutva. The things which are favorable to me, things which I really like. If somebody asks the question, how was it? It was so good, very nice. What little bit things change outside, that same ahankara becomes dukhi. How many times you have been disappointed, right? You order some Amazon packet. By the time it arrives, totally different from what you had seen. All of that is the same ahankara having its scale. Anukula scale and pratikula scale. What are we discussing right now? Practical ways of identifying this ahankara. Whenever we see kartrutva in us, whenever we see bhoktrutva in us, that is this ahankara. Third, very, very practical way of ahankara, recognizing ahankara, is our name. Ahankara sometimes seems like a very technical topic. What I call myself as Mr. So-and-so, that itself is ahankara. That is why vote of thanks, most difficult thing to do. One name you miss, it is one ahankara missed. It will have its own consequences. This we realize more when our name gets changed. How much affection we have to our name. First time when your Purvashrama name gets changed, almost for a week, you don't respond to people. They will call you with your new name and you are happily walking away as though they are calling somebody else. That is transactional expression of this ahankara. One depiction I had seen very nicely. It was an octopus having different tentacles. And this person who was depicting it was calling that octopus as ahankara. In every tentacle, it is holding on to one erroneous identity. In one side, it has body. So body is part of creation, but because there is this ahankara identifying with body, it calls that body as I. Another side is name. Third tentacle was holding on to degree. It says, I am so-and-so, I have such and such degree. Fourth one is position. Very nicely depicted. This is how this ahankara expresses in our everyday life. The reason we are discussing this is, Bhagwan Raman Maharshi is going to say, our root of samsara is not in the world outside. He says, root of samsara is in this ahankara. Because I have misunderstood myself to be something finite, all of samsara will come with that finitude. What is my true nature as aham? Infinite consciousness. Now, if I erroneously identify with that finite aham and then take myself to be this body, right from that point, samsara will start. I am different, you are different. If there is one place, is it two bodies cannot occupy the same place? Either I will sit or you will sit. Same thing with every different role that this ahankara identifies with. That is what brings our samsara. It is just like a thorn stuck in our foot and we are buying expensive shoes. Very nice, velvety, cushioned, very, very nice shoes. It says nothing is going to work until you remove that thorn. That thorn is this ahankara, keeping it inside no matter what we do outside. It says samsara is not going to end. It might end in one place, it will start somewhere else. That is a deep realization of a Vedanta sadhaka, because of which he starts working on eliminating this ahankara. Okay, first we saw just the introduction, how to observe creation and see different things are changing. 99% don't bother us. But that 1%, which is this body and the situation around us, bothers, brings fear. Root cause for that is ahankara, erroneous identification. How does this ahankara express? Kartrutva, bhoktrutva, our name, all the other things that we have attached to. Now, a little bit technical definition of ahankara. It will come in Saddarshanam. That's why this introduction. Think of this analogy. Have you seen the Bay Area where two bays kind of meet each other, or two rivers, let us say, Prayagraj? They have different depths sometimes. Wherever the water is deep, the color will be bluish. And wherever the water is shallow, there will be brownish tinge to that. So imagine one river like that, one part of it, shallow water, another part is deep water. Sun is getting reflected in both the waters. Shallower one, deeper one also. Analogy is clear, right? So over here also, sun represents Atma, Sat. The shallower water, which is constantly changing, constantly moving, lot of turbulence, that represents Antahkarana. That represents Antahkarana. And the deeper water, which is calm, but sun is reflecting there also. That thing is called as ahankara. Sun is Sat. Shallower water reflection is Antahkarana. Deeper water reflection is ahankara. That deeper water looks as though it is unchanging. But really speaking, it is also changing. But compared to the other water, this deeper water looks very calm, whereas the shallower water is having a lot of waves and so on. Like that in our subtle body also, one part is Antahkarana. Different thoughts of the world are coming, constantly changing. But then there is another part which is owning up all those thoughts. Thought comes off physical body, but this ahankara says, I am this body. The one who is owning up things, one who is becoming happy, becoming sad, that is this ahankara. Where is this example from? Drigdrishya Viveka. Chichaya veshato buddhau bhanam dhistudvidha sthita. Chichaya aveshata buddhau. There is reflection of consciousness happening in buddhi. So the shallow water and deep water together, that water is called as buddhi. Eka ahankruti syat anyasya antahkarana rupini. First one is called as ahankara, means the deeper water is ahankara. Another one is antahkarana. Ekahankrutiranyasyaat antahkarana rupini. Antahkarana, you can also call it as idam vrittis. Whatever thought is of an object, whatever thought is of idam, that is part of antahkarana, it will constantly keep changing. And it is such, this aham and idam, they are mutually dependent. Ahankara and idam vritti, they will always be together. You cannot have a thought of an object without ahankara owning it up. Try to see this camera without saying that I'm seeing this camera. Means you cannot know an object without owning it up. The moment you see anything, the thought subconsciously is, I know this thing. I heard something. I say, I hear, that part is ahankara. What I heard is idam vritti. That might keep changing. So these two things will always go together. And you cannot recognize ahankara without idam. Otherwise also true, huh? Without idam, recognizing ahankara is very, very difficult. So both aham and idam, they are called as yugapat. Yugapat means they are simultaneously recognized. And our whole journey is to quieten idam first, reduce the quantity of thoughts, come to aham, and understand I am not this reflection, I am the original sat. So the water which is shallow, that I have to first quieten. That's why in today's meditation, we were seeing that portion of vairagya. If you are striving for a calm mind, if you are striving for an available mind, the only antidote there is vairagya, and to pull back the mind from racing objects. That is the whole idea. That is the path of sadhana also. But this technical definition is clear, right? The reflection of consciousness is called as ahankara. But where is it getting reflected? In one portion of buddhi, which I call as ahankara. The other portion is thoughts. Thoughts are not called as ahankara. Thoughts are something which is constantly changing. So many things are there. Even if I see a mountain, that is also a thought. But the moment I say I am seeing that mountain, that I part is called as ahankara. Okay. Expression of finitude, that is ahankara. I, which would have gone with infinite Atma, because of error, it is going with some finite thing. Meaning you cannot say or you cannot recognize ahankara without identification with body and mind. Remove body-mind identification and see how this ahankara appears. This ahankara will be merged in self. Minus body and mind identification, ahankara is nothing but Atma alone. That is another thing. Ahankara, sometimes we discuss in such a way, we feel like ahankara is something bad, some other person, I have to find Atma which is different from this ahankara. Our scriptures say, wherever we see ahankara, there alone we will recognize Atma. Not in some other place. Atma misidentified with some conditioning is called as ahankara. It is not some other independent entity. Atma alone, erroneously identified with body and mind. We have our Prabhavali, right? In every temple above Bhagwan's Vigraha. Have you seen that face on the top of Prabhavali? One of the name of that face is Kirti Mukha. Kirti Mukha. Even Prabhavalis, they are called as Kirti Mukha Prabhavali. And that Kirti Mukha is symbolic of ahankara. And the beauty is, where we find ahankara, there alone we will find Bhagwan. Right underneath at Prabhavali, we will find Bhagwan, not somewhere else. Meaning what? Wherever I am seeing the snake, there alone I have to inquire to find the rope. If I say snake is a bad thing, I will go somewhere else and find. You will find something else, but not the real thing. Like that, this ahankara, if I have to find, this is there only I have to do vichara. So Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi Ji will call it as ahankara vichara. But really speaking, ahankara vichara is atma vichara. Means questioning the validity of ahankara in that atma. When I say I am atma, how can this ahankara appear there with the same degree of reality? And how is this ahankara running the show? Our whole life, the main director is this ahankara only. Everything is doing. This is recognizing this drama of ahankara is the purpose of texts like Saddarshanam. Okay. Swami Vivekananda Ji, he would tell one story to illustrate this point, how that infinite consciousness thinking itself to be finite ends up in samsara. There is one sutra in Yoga Darshana, Drashtur Drushayoho Sanyogaha Heya Hetuhu. This is, if you really want to let go of something in life, let go of this false identification between the self, the seer, and the seen. Drashtuhu Drushayoho Sanyogaha Heya Hetuhu. Let go of it. That is what has brought all samsara in our life. Swami Vivekananda would say, once Indra Bhagwan was going across Prithvi Loka, and he finds a family of pigs eating some filth over there. Suddenly he feels, look at them, how they are living their life. I should help, these pigs. I should do something about it. Then out of his compassion, he takes the form of a pig and joins their family. And he gets immersed in such a way that he totally forgets he is Indra. He also starts eating filth. He also starts doing everything. When everybody was crying, he also starts crying. Other devatas come and say, what are you doing? You are our king. Your throne is empty there and you are living here with all the pigs. He says, you don't know how happy we are. You also should become one. He tells all the devatas. Devatas again and again come. They try to tell him. They say, this is not going to work. So suddenly they start disappearing one by one from his family, the pigs which were there. And then he's lamenting so much, crying so much. And finally they come and finish Indra, who is in that pig body. And suddenly the whole Maya goes away. He says, what was I doing? Where was I? And where did I get caught up? He said that Indra is all of us. Our essential nature is pure consciousness. thinking ourselves to be this body, thinking ourselves to be this ahamkara. He says we have entered voluntarily into this samsara. So Saddarshanam will be that text which is going to address this point. Now, Bhagwan Raman Maharshi, who is the composer of this text, translated by great disciple of Bhagwan, Kavya Kantha Ganapati Muniji. Generally, what happens is whenever you translate something, the essence of that original work is lost. Even if you translate Shankar Bhashya into English, you read the English commentary, you don't feel the same impact that you would have felt with the original. But the beauty of Saddarshanam is the purity and the originality is maintained so beautifully by Kavya Kantha Ganapati Muniji, as though Bhagwan Raman Maharshi only has composed in Sanskrit. This is possible when the student is so tuned to the teacher that every expression of the teacher, every phrase that the teacher is using, it is so aptly captured that we feel as though Bhagwan Raman Maharshi himself is speaking out these verses. Means Bhagwan only has spoken, but in Sanskrit, the translation also looks like that. But also we should appreciate the impact of Sanskritam. If it was in any regional language, any text, so many Mahatmas have composed, it remains only for that region. But Sanskrit is something which opens it up for everybody. There is one text called as Vichar Sagar, composed in Awadhi language, like Braj Bhasha. To read that original one is so difficult. It is just like Chaupais of Ramcharitmanas, very difficult to understand. But one Swamiji, he translated it into Sanskritam. It is a go-to book. You know, any topic you need more clarity, there you will find different topics. So I have picked few verses from Sri Ramana Gita. That is a conversation with Bhagwan Raman Maharshi. If we are inspired to study Saddarshanam and we say, you know, we are willing to put forth effort, and we ask Bhagwan Raman Maharshi, do you have some guidance where we can start? These were question answers. I'm just putting it over here. Sri Ramana Gita is Bhagwan's answers to different devotees whenever they asked certain questions. That is composed in Sanskritam. Bhagwan Raman Maharshi, first he says, purpose of human birth, purpose of human life is to recognize true self and to abide in that true self. Nothing else can be our absolute purpose. It says start from this point, start with this clarity. It is said one devotee had written 2 words hoping to compose a shloka. He just wrote those 2 words, went away. When he came back, Bhagwan completed this verse for him. I will chant the verse, all of you can repeat after me. You don't have to write it down. We will see the meaning. Hrudaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahma matram hyahamiti sakshat Atma rupena bhati hrudi vishamanasa svam Chinvata majjata va pavana chalana rodhat atmanishto bhavatvam. That is Bhagwan's blessings. He says, if there is one thing you have to accomplish in human birth, atmanishto bhavatvam. Become atmanishta, abide in the self. Where will I find the self? Hrudaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahma matram. In the cave of the heart, there is only pure consciousness. What is cave of the heart? Buddhi. Hrudi here in several places in Saddarshanam will mean intellect. Means thoughts. When you inquire into thoughts, into the cave of thoughts, you don't know how many thoughts are there. Deep cave it is. There you will find the illuminator. That illuminator is Brahma. Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matram. That Brahman which is Kevala, unaffected by any thoughts. How will I recognize it? Aham iti sakshat Atma Rupena Bhati. It is always available to us as I. I identified with conditioning becomes ahankara. Same I minus conditioning is Atma. This point you have to think. Don't just take it because you are hearing it. Ahankara is not some other I. The same I, pure self, whenever it identifies with a conditioning, it is called as ahankara. I minus conditioning is Atma. Aham iti sakshat Atma Rupena Bhati. Because ahankara also is known as I only. If you say I is Atma, you say I feel I is ahankara. So you know that ahankara is because some conditioning you are including there. Say aham minus body minus mind. He says that is this sakshat Atma. Swatma Rupena Bhati, you don't have to go anywhere else. Hrudi Vishar, enter into this true self, abide in this true self. How should I abide? Using my mind, manasa Hrudi Vishar. Means we cannot suddenly hope to become Atmanishta. We will have to study, we will have to reflect, and then walk this path. What is the path? Chinvata Majjatava. One path is Jnana Marga, path of inquiry. Raman Maharshi loves this path. He says it's a direct path. You just hold on to Upanishad mantra, question the validity of ahankara, you will reach your goal. Manasam tu kim margane krute naiva manasam marga arjavat. Arjavat means straightforward, very, very simple. So Raman Maharshi feels you inquire into mind, you will realize mind is mithya, done. Whatever remains is Atma. Where do you have to go? That is the first path, Chinvata. Second one is Majjata. Preparing ourselves with devotion. Majjatava. Bhavashunya sat, bhavasustitihi, bhavana balat, bhaktiruttama. Having this tivra bhavana towards Bhagwan, merging oneself in the Lord. That is the another path which will lead us to Jnanam. Third path is Pavana Chalana Rodhat Atmanishto Bhavatvam. Pavana Chalana Rodhat means pranayama. But whenever the word pranayama comes, it is not only breath control. It is talking about Ashtanga Yoga. Entire Ashtanga Yoga, he says that also is one path. Start from Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara. All those things which are there, culminating in Samadhi. That is the third path one can walk. He says, do whatever you want. Atmanishto Bhavatvam. Be free from sorrow. Be free from all miseries. Otherwise, we might say, I am expert in Chinvata path, expert in Majjata. I know all of Ashtanga Yoga. Only thing which has not happened is sorrow gone away. That is not what we want. This is take whichever path. Hold on to one, reach your goal. That is the purpose of human birth. Now, somebody might say, is it this simple? That you just have to question, negate ahankara and you are done? Why do we feel samsara is so big, so difficult? This is really speaking, it is very simple. Ahankara, if we remove, all our samsara is gone. But the problem here is this ahankara, this again is Raman Maharshiji's point. He says, this ahankara is the one who is playing the role of a cop, one who is playing the role of a thief. Both are the same. Means at night he commits robbery. In the morning he sits in the police station and says, who is the one who committed theft? He said, when will you catch such a thief? But appreciate the beauty of this analogy. Huh? In our sadhana path, what are we striving to reduce? Ahankara. What are we trying to remove? Ahankara. Who is the one who is doing sadhana? Same ahankara. Same ahankara is the one who is doing sadhana also. Same ahankara is the one whom we are trying to remove also. So do you see the analogy there? Thief and the cop is the same. So he says, even if you are successful in removing erroneous ahankara, we will still be left with good ahankara. Now it is better than having some erroneous ahankara. Having sadhaka ahankara is good. But until the point we realize, even this sadhaka ahankara is a bondage. We cannot go further. One Mahatma Ji would give an example. After I give the example, you should tell me from which text it is. He would say, one of the slippery slope of good ahankara, one of the limitations of good ahankara is becoming oversensitive. This person is so good, doesn't want to hurt anybody, doesn't want to do anything. But karma phala is such, somewhere or the other, something will happen. And he ends up having sleepless night because of some vyavahara outside. He said, see, that is your bondage of a sadhaka ahankara. Even being sattvic ahankara, if it is not done in the right way, that sattvic ahankara also will become bondage. Until we understand, I am not this sattvic ahankara also, I am that self in which this ahankara is a false appearance. Now can you tell where it is? This is Bhaja Govindam. Shatrau mitre putrau bandhau ma kuru yatnam vigraha sandhau. Next line is beautiful. Sarvasminnapi pashyatmanam sarvatrotsruja bheda jnanam. Bhagavan says, don't get overly concerned about Shatru and Mitra. Shatru is enemy, Mitra is friend. Putre bandhav, all the relatives. Now we had seen in Bhaja Govindam, either it is Shatru, Mitra and relatives, or within relatives and Shatru and Mitra. Whatever it is. He says, don't get overly concerned. Ma kuru yatnam vigraha sandhav. Don't go out of the way to forge a friendship or to keep somebody away. Why? Because all of that is rooted in ahankara. And more this sattvic ahankara is protected, more it will bother that sadhaka. Sarvasminnapi pashyatmanam. He says, in everybody, see the same self. Everybody means including this ahankara in this whole creation. He says it is the same self appearing as everything. Sarvatrotsruja. Remove this bheda ajnanam, the notion of duality in this world. That is this path. That is this journey of removing this ahankara. First ahankara is called as Bhadak Ahankara. Bhadak Ahankara means it is very good in getting into trouble. Some erroneous vyavahara it will do. It will say something erroneous, do something erroneous, end up in trouble. Another ahankara is Sadhaka Ahankara, where it has worked upon it, become very sattvic, But there also it is bound. How it is bound? Like this. Becoming oversensitive, or whatever things come along with sattva guna. Finitude will not go. That is the bottom line. When both of that is removed, what remains? He says that is this sat. When Bhadak Ahankara is gone, Sadhaka Ahankara is also negated. That is true freedom. That is Saddarshanam. Of course, the catch is you cannot directly come to negating Sadhaka Ahankara. First, you have to negate Bhadak Ahankara first. Okay. There are a few more questions of Sri Ramana Gita, but we'll continue in the next session. Very nice pointers are there. Sometimes we feel Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi always emphasized on Jnanam. Although he said Jnana Marga is the Arjava Marga, a very beautiful pointers are there. What is Bhagavan's perspective about sadhana? There are prerequisites, right, in some courses. There are some professors, they will not even start teaching before you clear those prerequisites and come. So Bhagavan expects some prerequisites. He says, we will not discuss them in Saddarshanam. It is up to you. You have to go and practice karma yoga, upasana, everything else. This is only the main teaching. Okay. Next Saturday, we have our Gita chanting yajna. So we will start our class at 6:30. We'll not have meditation. We'll start Saddarshanam at 6:30. That way all of our sevaks can get ready for the yajna also in time. Okay. Anything else? Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.